Guys, I can't believe that nobody talks about the best music that Thomas Tompa Lindberg produced. I'm gonna talk about it now. These specific albums with this specific band that he made a long time ago. This is Andrea Lisi. People from abroad, not in Italy, call me Andrew Lisi. I'm an author, a long-time fan, metalhead. And I've been following Thomas Lindberg, I think, since around 2002, 2003. I discovered this specific band I'm going to talk about here in this video, in this podcast, at the time through a magazine. Though one of the ones were published back in the day, like paper magazines. People born millennials and younger people, I don't think they'd even know about it. This kind of stuff. Well, Thomas was a big influence on me. Like when in 2004, I found that one of my bands was some sort of metalcore, death metal influence band where I used to be just a vocalist. I called the band Gardens of Grief. And it's still up on MySpace, I guess, or some maybe YouTube. I will link to it in the show notes. You can listen to some of the songs. I was very influenced by the name comes from. And so my relationship with Thomas goes a long way back, even though then I did not follow the most recent At the Gates album, the one since the reunion on. I went back to listen to them just after Tompa died recently. And yeah, it's sad. I mean, many people in the metal and rock scene died recently. They all apparently had some issues around the same age. I mean, even a couple of years ago, I guess in 2021, LG Petrov, I met in southern Italy 20 years ago. Yeah, he died of cancer. He had an issue around his throat, and even Thomas very sadly died of throat cancer. Yeah. So if you are into metal and extreme metal in particular, this subculture, I mean, know about Slaughter of the Soul, the most famous album by At the Gates, you know, maybe about some of the other projects that Tompa did. I even wrote about him in, around 2009 on my personal blog, Occhi per Vedere, Eyes to See, which I link below also, about this other band. And after he died recently, I mean, of course, there was a lot of commotion and tributes on YouTube also and blogs by many colleagues of him and many fans. But what I didn't see is a commentary or even a reference to what he did with The Great Deceiver. Listen to those albums if you didn't yet. Go on YouTube, go on Spotify, wherever you get your streaming services. And unfortunately, I don't have here the albums themselves because I bought them in Digipack CD back when I lived at my mom's house, and they are still over there. I don't listen to CDs anymore. I only have some LPs, some vinyl, as you can see from the video here on YouTube back here. But yeah, the most loved one for me is Terra Incognito, which in Italian we would call it Terra Incognito. But I noticed the typo in the title means unknown land. That was the second album. I mean, the other two that they produced between 1999 and 2005 were the first one, Well Designed, in 2002 for Peaceville Records, and in 2003, Terra Incognito for Peaceville Records. And third one came some years later, Life is Wasted on the Living. Over there, I mean, there's a slight change in style and especially in the vocal style. The album came out with Deathwish Incorporated. And they also did some EPs and single that you can find easily on Spotify, for instance. So what I love the most and what people are not talking about online is that Tompa, of course, is known by the screaming style that he developed, which feels at times somehow like somebody whining, somebody crying. And I read some funny comments, and I don't mean no disrespect for him. I mean, he kept this style for decades, you know, so it was a brand, actually, his trademark. And I understand why, when going back with Ed Gates in the recent last 15 years, doing shows and doing some new albums, he kept that original style from the Ed Gates in the 90s. But what he developed in that frame of time when Ed Gates were disbanded at the end of the 90s, start of the 2000s, in my opinion, is even better. Of course, commercially, it didn't have that resonance. And yeah, though at the time it was even more up to the style that was developing with new metal, you know, and new sounds, more modern sounds at the beginning of the 2000. Yes. So what I love the most is clean vocal experiments that he did on those albums, especially on Terra Incognito, because you may, if you are into old school death metal, especially, and brutal death metal and technical death metal, for the matter, you may not like the Great Deceiver, which is the most experimental project he did in this genre. It's surely more similar to Godflesh than, for instance, Dismember or At the Gates themselves. But what he did was creating something very dark over there. And I remember the lyrics were even more poetic than he was already known for. One of the best tracks, for instance, on that album is Faust in Exile. I think they also did a video clip of that, so you go on YouTube and check out. But yeah, I think what interested me at the time also was political subjects in the lyrics. So it's about media manipulation, existential revolt, and something even deeper than what people found in At the Gates. You shouldn't be, surprised at that, because he did many other collaborations throughout the year, and I even compiled a playlist on Spotify for myself because I didn't find in the other ones all the stuff that he did on other albums. I mean, he sang and screamed also on songs by Orphan Land from Israel, for instance, or, I mean, Darkest Hour, of course. He did Disfear band, which were more cross punk, and I loved a lot as well. I mean, many things he did. And I remember reading interviews back in the day where people were asking him, how are you able to do this? I mean, don't you have a life? I mean, he said basically, I couldn't say no. I am not able to say no when friends ask me to join and do a guest vocal insert on their albums, or on tour, on doing new projects, new bands and stuff. So a very passionate person, especially knowing that he came from a more cultural background than the usual heavy metal, extreme metal singer and screamer and growler. I appreciated him even more because of that. Yeah, I suggest you go, if you haven't already, check the lyrics he wrote and check out the other music he did, especially with the Great Deceiver. I can't believe that nobody talked about this project, just because maybe they didn't have that, huge commercial success. They were boundaries and the usual categories that labels used to push music back in the day when there were people buying albums, but also later. I mean, I'm very sad for his passing out. He was, as far as I know, also a very good teacher. That was his main job in school. And people will remember him always, because in metal and extreme metal especially, it's very hard to find somebody who doesn't write about bullshit, the usual tropes, the usual subjects of satanism and, gory stuff. When you talk about dark matters and going deep and being more intimate, he demonstrated, he showed people that you can do it also in extreme music. Yeah. And you can develop and, try different styles as well. This is my small tribute to Tompa, and hope you like it. I'm going to do more videos about metal, and on this channel you can also find other stuff. Just tell me, where would you find another person like that? And I hope there are some musicians and some vocalists and some lyricists in music today that are like him, that were, influenced by philosophy and put in their lyrics some philosophy and more intellectual lyrics, like influenced by existentialism and literature like Camus, Orwell, of course. There was a lot of Orwell in The Great Deceiver, and Nietzsche as well. Just tell me. I mean, let me know in the comments if you know other bands that are in the trail of what he did, especially with The Great Deceiver.